Welcome to the System Simplified podcast, where we feature top leaders who share stories on how to successfully systemize a business. Now, let's get started with the show.
Hello, Adi Klevit here, the host of the System Simplified podcast, where I feature top founders, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders about systematizing a business. And today's episode is being brought to you by Business Success Consulting Group, where we create, document, optimize, and implement processes and procedures so businesses can grow and thrive. And today's guest is a recurring guest. It's Joel Greenwald. Hey, Joel.
Hey, Adi, how are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Good. It's almost summer. That's a great thing.
It really is, yeah. And it's good to have you again. We had a great conversation last time you were here, and we talked, and now things evolve in your business as well. And we're going to talk about a great subject, which is training on the subject of HR, but it's very special training. So we're going to talk about that, and you're going to explain about it. And I know that both you and I have great conversations about the implementation of AI and AI in business. So we might touch upon it a little bit I always bring it up in the podcast because it's such a hot topic. So, so your bio first. So you reshape how organizations navigate workplace challenges through your national employment law firm and innovative training company. And you advance a prevention-first subscription model that gives leadership teams clarity instead of surprises. So you basically have this subscription model where companies can subscribe and can help get the counsel that they need and the help that they need without having to call a lawyer just when they need a lawyer.
Well, I think that, our approach, we've been in business as an employment law firm for businesses, which is essentially an HR law firm, supporting them. And there's some traditional labor, but it's mostly HR oriented. And we've been supporting them on crises, litigations, preventative medicine, all those things for 28 years. And I think that about 10, 12 years ago, I really wanted to shift our focus to being prevention oriented and to be fixated on getting ahead of the problems, because I find with employment law, so much of it is preventable and everybody's very reactive, and businesses tend to call counsel because the meter is always running. They're scared of that, and they don't want too much involvement, and they usually wait till it's late, and then the problems are really difficult to solve at that point often, and they're and it's just not the optimal way, I think, to get ahead of this, even from a cultural perspective and a disruption perspective. So our feeling has always been prevention from the very beginning, and but I think we manifested it in a clearer way to create really an employment law operating system for companies. And a big feature of that is putting the education even in front of the advice and counsel. And, so you asked me about the training, or that we're going to talk about training. So a fixation of mine, because I love employment law content and teaching. And it was something that when I set out to be a lawyer, I didn't necessarily know how much I'd enjoy that, but I do. And I've spoken to groups for many, many years all around the country, but the training has always been important to me. And it's not just harassment and discrimination training, it's training on a lot of different things. So what we do is we train.
So let's talk about that. Like, what are some of the areas? Because when we hear HR training, people think, oh yeah, it's harassment, discrimination, is those videos that I have to watch or I have to make my employees watch. But your concept of training is different. It is, first of all, the way we're going to talk about two things. Is the concept of what the training should be about, and also the way that you go about it, which is very interactive, very entertaining, and very much easy to absorb. But let's talk about the content. What are some of the important topics that entrepreneurs need to get knowledge in order to protect themselves and also be better employers, not necessarily just for the protection part?
Yeah, no, everything we're talking about, to me, makes the business run smoother. Because
Right.
most companies, your employees are the major source of victory, but also the source of pain. And you got to get it over to the good side more. And from my perspective, there's two main groups that we like to train, that we think need training. Primarily our line managers, people that are managing employees. Employees can, anyone that can receive a complaint from an employee, to me, is usually somebody at least under consideration of a manager that needs to be trained, because how do they handle that? But there's a few different ways that we approach managers. And then I think secondarily, we are focused on an HR audience and bettering them as well, leveling them up as much as possible on all cutting edge compliance issues that they may come into contact with, or just some basic things that we want to just remind them of and go through, but we do it in an interesting way. So we have a series of HR master classes, and HR people join cohorts with other HR people from other companies. And we end up showing these really unique videos that we shot with Broadway actors that are small in terms of length, but they really pack a punch in terms of the fact that they don't feel like industrial video because they were all improv, and they feel real. And then we gamify it a little bit by breaking the groups up into smaller groups and asking them questions and kind of competing against other groups. So I think it becomes somewhat of a fun thing, and that they really need to do. And then for managers, we're doing some of the same things in terms of very often having the groups think like a workshop and really trying to attack a problem and trying to assess risk. Um, but in both instances, and the training spans a few subjects, what I'll tell you, but the main thing in both, in my mind, is that we really want managers to know when they should handle something, when they should not handle something, and most importantly, when they should escalate something to HR, which is really a workflow issue as well. And I think by the same token, I want HR people to know when they should escalate things to counsel. They shouldn't wait. They shouldn't just try to handle something themselves. Even though HR people, there's a wide variance of the level of training of their staffs. Some people are new to the field. Some people have been in it for a long, long time. Either way, I want to make sure that the escalation marks are clear on both levels. And for managers, it's not just harassment, discrimination. Clearly, for the HR people, it's not as well. It's 20 plus courses for the HR
Give us
folks.
some examples of some of the subjects.
Well, for example, for managers, we have a whole course that's a 2-hour course devoted on documentation and discipline. So essentially, what does the paper trail look like? Well, how do you document? How do you give feedback? What do you do in terms of that? Managers, by and large, don't know how to do that. And so companies are often in a position where they have to fire somebody that there's no record. There may be a good record. There may be a performance management document that's excellent, and they've got to terminate the person. So we go through that. We go through also what they should say, what they shouldn't say, when to escalate things, when not to escalate things. And so we have 3 2-hour courses that are primary for managers. And one of them is the discrimination, harassment, and accommodation training. But once again, it's not off the shelf. It's very real world, and there's certainly exercise on the documentation discipline. I want that to be, but the HR folks, it may be more technical. It may be understanding joint employer liability, understanding the idea of what truly is an independent contractor, how to terminate toxic yet high performing employees. It could be really anything. What are the AI products that are out there that they may be using that pose problems? So we really want to keep that current and keep them cutting edge. Those are more master classes versus trainings, but I still want them to be interactive and fun.
Absolutely. So what size company, what's the minimal size company that you would recommend to send their HR or the person who is in charge of HR if they don't have a dedicated person to HR for those trainings?
I often think the very small companies really benefit a lot from the HR master classes, because very often the person that's performing HR in that function doesn't have formal training. They may even be an office manager, or it's a part-time gig for the bookkeeper, the CFO. Like in really small companies, maybe less than 50 employees, that is the case. I think we do a lot of great things for them. But I would say that for managers, I definitely think a lot of the bigger organizations, in addition, especially the bigger organizations, really you'd be shocked at how little the managers really know.
You know what? I probably wouldn't, because I thought we document, because we work with your firm and we documented your processes, we create
You
workflows.
do a great job.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And I thought that, with the first time I got a bigger client, I thought, oh, well, they probably have everything in place. So I'm not shocked because I've seen the bigger companies that you will think that they have workflows and SOPs and things in place, but they don't. They have some things patched. I'm not saying everyone, but there are several of them that we then help, where I thought a company that size must have it. How did they grow to that size? But it's just growing and growing. The same thing with HR. They grow, they hire, they fire, they do all those things, but they need help. They need to get trained for sure. So Joel, probably some of our listeners right now would like to get to the website and look at the training. Where should they go?
Well, right now, we're launching the training now as a separate company outside the law firm. That'll be up soon. The name is Signatrain, Signa Train, but the official site's not up for there. But you could go onto the Greenwald Doherty website. We're still offering all that trainings through Greenwald Doherty, through the law firm. I would say that within a month or so, the site will be ready.
Good. So this is an evergreen podcast. So we're definitely going to include that one as well, because people are going to be able to go to the training website and the Greenwald Doherty, and we're going to include both. So both websites will be included.
Yeah, we appreciate it. Yeah, and thanks again for having me on. I'm glad you invited me. It's always a pleasure to see what's going on. And I think that we're in a time now, for a while, keeping it as a just a part of the law firm made sense, but I think there's so many possibilities now with the way business is going that I see all sorts of possibilities for training and education of those key stakeholders in companies.
You do. And going into AI and asking those questions, it's not the same thing. You
No,
can't
no.
just go because first of all, you need to know what questions you're asking, and then you're also opening yourself to risk, because who knows what answer you're going to get. And then if you act on it, it's going to be a problem.
And I think for some of the things that we try to educate the folks that we're educating on, I'm not so sure that's AI. And I use AI a lot. I'm just not sure that that's AI at its best, because it's really judgment in the moment. We're really doing judgment training. Like, what's your decision if this situation that you just saw happen? What's the least risky? If I plug that into AI, it's not, and I have some expertise on this. I'm not often happy with the answers they give.
No, because the thing is with the judgment, and I just had a conversation with another entrepreneur about it, is what you feed into the AI. So it's enough that you do not feed it enough of what you saw, that the answer is going to be different. And that's where you really need the training, because you need to train yourself to be able to have that judgment and look at all the aspects of the situations. Because if you leave some out, then the solution of the AI is not going to be accurate. And then you say, oh yeah, that's AI hallucinating. But the truth is, it spit it out, whatever you ask it to do. You have to be so specific, and that's why you have to get trained to do that. Not to mention that you have just the interaction of others and doing it the way that you are doing, gamifying it and doing it in cohorts. That is a method of learning and becoming better and better as humans that is absolutely necessary.
I think that AI gets you to a certain place, but just because we're dealing with such sensitive information here on the law firm side too, I like having a lawyer in the loop before an answer. So are we producing a bot for companies to be able to ask questions? Sure, but the lawyer's got to be part of the solution.
Hey, the same thing with us. I mean, we use AI tools and develop them, and we have Process Guru AI that people can ask questions, but it gets you to a certain level. But then if you want the full thought of the entire thing and actual getting a product that we know that it was going to work, you got to have also people. We can't just eliminate people. That's not going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, I think like a lot of businesses, I just think that AI is great on a supportive level, and it helps in a lot of ways. But I'm not letting AI deliver answers to our clients in that way. I just am not. I built bots before with a team, and I've seen some of the coaching that they displayed, and I know it's getting better and better. But if you press it hard enough, you're going to get some wrong answers.
Absolutely, I agree. Well, Joel, it's always a pleasure having you on the podcast. I'm sure we're going to record one in the future as well, after you get this company up and running and a lot of and more training added to it. So thank you so much for your knowledge, your expertise, and for being a guest here.
Thank you for having me, and I hope to see you soon.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the System Simplified podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.